Welcome to the Red to Black podcast, hosted by Werner Minchell, ex-Marine aviator and current real estate investor, and Mario Parzino, current Marine infantry officer and business investor. Good evening, everyone. This is Werner with the Red to Black podcast. I'm a former Marine aviator, current real estate investor. We have a guest, Justin Howe. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, it's Justin Howe in the Konnichiwa from Japan. I'm actually an aviator myself. I would say a beginner real estate investor. I have several properties, that I still hold, and just happy to be here. Current pilot, flying the UC-35. So really excited.
And Mario?
Yeah, Mario Parzino. Spent a few years in the Marine Corps with Warner. I'm still currently in, so Justin and I are still active duty. I own a little bit of real estate, and I also have some private business deals that I've worked myself into over the last few years. Happy to be here as well.
Great. So for everyone tonight, we're going to be discussing how do you increase your travel mobility in an unfree world. And the first topic we're covering is creating options. So we're going to hand it over to our guest, Justin. What are your thoughts on creating options when it comes to travel mobility?
Well, I think there's several things that should consider with options in traveling. One is the idea of community organizing and maybe whether or not you need to own a car or not own a car, and peer-to-peer networks, utilizing public transportation versus purchasing your own car, which, depending upon where you live and what your goals are, you really could save yourself quite a bit.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is it's specific. It's specific to your location, just specific to your needs. Mario, what are your thoughts?
Justin's right. You can take a huge, massive depreciation hit by driving a brand new BMW off the parking lot. It's a massive hit for a young guy in their 20s. I'm rapidly approaching my 40th birthday, and I drive a 21-year-old Toyota 4Runner, and I bought it used 19 years ago. Had 10,000 miles on it, so I'm in favor of owning a pickup truck or a body-on-frame SUV that's basically a pickup truck, but it's got a covered back seat and back bed area. I think pickup trucks offer you high durability, and they actually last really, really, really long time. If you take care of a pickup truck, it basically will last you the rest of your life. So I'm in favor of owning one pickup truck with high utility and high durability.
Yeah. So what's funny about that is, Justin, I don't know if you know, but I bought a 2014 Toyota Tundra. Mario, you don't know that Justin's got a Toyota 4Runner, and then you have a Toyota. So we have 3 Toyotas in this. That's interesting. But one thing I'd like to add to that is one thing I think that's completely not completely misrepresented, but underrepresented is your ability to walk. What are your guys' thought, Justin? What are your guys' thought on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, a great point. I mean, the idea of utilizing your body for transportation, comes at a cost because you have to have food and stay hydrated and have good meals and good health. Yet they're cost saving ways of moving around. You could walk to work location, live in a community where you're able to get around and tend to all your needs, with just walking, grocery store, entertainment, cafes, restaurants. It is to be said that to live in a walkable neighborhood almost cuts out that whole idea of the need for transportation.
Yeah, great. So basically, also in terms of travel mobility, thinking about the community you're going to be in and and how large that community is, whether or not you can walk that community, it all fits into place. So thinking about your community now, Mario, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so walking is one of the most healthy things you can actually do. Um, Basically, and it also provides you two things. One, you're getting from point A to point B. You're burning some calories while you're doing that, and also is you have time to think when you're driving or you're running or you're riding a bike or you're doing something that's a little bit more dynamic. It's you're thinking about not crashing. You're taking in a lot. You're like sensory overload when you're driving a vehicle. When you're walking, it's so slow that your brain is able to process everything and also think. So for me on the weekends, I love to park my truck on the weekends and walk around. I do at least an hour on Saturday, just getting some vitamin D, shirt off, walk for an hour, and it really helps me think. I could be running, I could be swimming, I could be bicycling, but walking to me is an opportunity to really think through some problems, and I'm trying to, look at the chessboard and figure out what are my next at least one or two or three moves. So yeah, walking's super healthy and cathartic.
Yeah, so coming from two different angles, yeah, great thoughts on both your parts. Basically, one's the community and the ability, position yourself in a spot where you can walk and you're spending less time in your vehicle, and another one is, the ability to think and walk and get your body on point. So anything else you guys have to add about around walking? Or excuse me, not necessarily just walking, but around creating options, because we haven't even gotten to planes and boats.
Yeah, so Warner, I'll jump in here. So basically, what I want to have in my life is multiple options, and really, it basically it produces an ability to maneuver away from human misbehavior. So if I've got a pickup truck and I also have a Cessna 206, I've got some options in my life. And private aviation is absolutely possible if you split it down to a reasonable cost that you can write off on your business expenses. So if it's a business, if your airplane and your fuel and your maintenance and your hangar is all part of your business as an expense, it's actually quite doable. So Warner and I are just looking. The first plane we'd like to get into is Cessna 206. Justin, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that prospect is encouraging. I currently fly the uh, Citation 560, and
Yeah,
and just
a little bit faster.
yeah, but I mean, just having those legs, being able to circumvent like thunderstorms, is pretty dependable, reliable, fast, and flies high. The ceiling is 450, so flight level 450 at 45,000 feet. So you pretty much can get over just about any piece of weather that could be out there. So in particular. Uh, in the United States, you can reach just about any place in the mode of travel, the convenience of the travel. But I think it will work best as a collaborative effort. Just for
That's
example,
right.
I own a boat. The myself. I own it with my uncle and my brother. So we split the cost, and just splitting that cost, one has allowed me to one retain ownership of that boat because now I'm in Japan and I've been living in Japan for the last 2 years paying for this boat. But two, it is a timeshare almost. If I go back to the DC metropolitan area, then I have a place to stay. With no not have to worry about inconveniencing any friends or family, instead of a place where it's walkable.
All right, so we got a citation and a boat. So I'm way behind here, but yeah, Warner and I are looking at the 206 just to basically build ours, and then we'll step up to a Pilatus. I think it's a PC12, PC12, PC6.
Yeah, PC or NG12, Justin. I forget. I haven't looked at it in a bit.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you this. I just became a NATOPS instructor in the Citation 560. So, you know, I, I'll be looking forward to doing some flight instruction.
That's right. We're gonna bring you on. Yeah, we're gonna bring you on.
Oh yeah, we would love to get some from you.
Yeah. So basically, if you're going across country and you hit some nasty weather, you can pop up. You don't have to necessarily fly around the weather. You can actually just kind of get over on top of the weather and fly on, over and above it. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. There's been several times, just on our normal transit from mainland Japan back here to Okinawa, where the tops are sitting around 38 to 40,000 feet, and we just fly over top of it. So I mean, you see all the thunderstorm activity down below. It's a great way to not have to waste a lot of fuel.
Yeah.
So because the profile to get up there is typically the higher you go, the less fuel you burn. Being up at those altitudes, your fuel burn, drops, pretty much two thirds, from around 1,000 pounds per engine to about 250 to 300 pounds per engine up at flight level. So it's cost savings as well.
For the purpose of time, guys, let's move on to the next one, which is is one of our great things Mara and I've been talking about, Justin, which I know you are a big fan of, is how do you live with less? And I'll hand it over to you, Justin. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, living with less, is just being minimalistic, as much as you can. Is both a uh, something you really have to think about, on what is essential for your life, as well as you know making sure you maintain the needs of your family. And I think that is the constant struggle, is how do you keep things simple yet provide, as your family changes. So I find that as what works for me, before I buy anything new, we have to donate some things, to go away, and that just keeps down the clutter, and keeps life as simple as it can be.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point because Lydia and I don't think I've shared with you, Justin. Mario knows. We've been basically moving out of our tundra. We've been moving for the last year and a half since the pandemic, going from Hawaii to California to Wyoming, where I bought a building, like a 300 unit apartment building, back to California, drove to Wyoming, or to Miami. Oh yeah, I drove back to so we've been learning how to live with just enough equipment that fits in a short bed Toyota Tundra, the extended crew cab with the 5.5, I think, length bed. And so I know exactly what you're saying, Justin, because we're actually in a situation where it's like, no, there's nothing else I can fit in here. What are we getting rid of? So that's an excellent point. Mario, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to me, it's about the Pareto principle, or really value. So I'm going to get 80% of my value from 20% of my possessions. So if I haven't touched something in a year, it needs to get sold, or it needs to be donated, or I need to find somebody that's going to get some use out of it. You really can have minimal things in life, and one, it frees you up to be mobile. Like Warner said, is with less stuff in your life holding you down, you can move a lot quicker than most people. And then two, your mind is freer. Like if you have a bunch of clutter in your house, or there's a bunch of things you have to clean or maintain or put away, it makes a cluttered mind. If you have a very minimalist setup, you have more time to think and less time to clean and move things and stack things and organize things. And the clutter, to me, the clutter is not only is it physical, it's mental. Over to you guys.
I mean, that's a great point, Mario. Like when we talk about like the clutter in your house is both physical and mental. You know, that is huge, because it's a reflection of of your mental state. It's a reflection of um, how much you try to juggle, whether that is like like Mario, you were saying, like you have to constantly clean, you have to constantly fix this, you're constantly putting this away because your children are always pulling it out, little pieces everywhere. So it's just it's important just to try to get things as streamlined and efficient as you can, because
That's it.
it's an organizational thing that also occurs in your head, because your mind to be organized, streamlined as well, and be most efficient.
No, you're right. It's efficiency. That's basically, it boils down to efficiency. The less things you own, the more efficient you're going to be. If you have a concrete bunker you live in and you can power wash it twice a week, literally inside, you could power wash this thing. That's how quickly you could clean it. You're more efficient than a guy that's got to like dust and move everything off, then dust it, move everything back on, move to the next area, take this down, clean all the pictures you got hanging up. It just the faster you can do things, and you want to live in a clean spot. Like if you don't have time to clean, you own too much stuff, or you own too big of a house.
I actually have a funny story which Justin will laugh at when we moved. Justin, myself, and Nick Majka, who we'll have on the show at some point. We we moved into a house in North Carolina, and Justin and I both brought our. We did not follow this principle at all in terms of our couches, because we both had this long ass. Um, we had two L-shaped couches, and it looks. I don't know, Justin, you take it from here, Justin. You could tell how. Remember how that looked?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was like, a hodgepodge of just, furniture. I mean, the room was pretty large, but it was just so much, stuff everywhere.
Two
Um,
TVs, two big,
two
two large
TVs.
15 screen TVs.
Yeah, and that was so long ago. I actually had the rolling 50-inch projector, and that was like the big
So did
screen.
I. I had the
You
same
know,
one.
I mean, it was like a piece of furniture if you think about it. Like the size and the scale. It had its own wheels, and it was the projector TV, and we thought we were cool as sliced bread, back then. But um,
Couple of pilots, just too fast, man, too fast, and too much stuff.
Yeah, and then we had all our crap down in the basement, and then a hurricane was coming. We were arguing. I was telling Justin and Nick like, get out of here. It's gonna flood. And they're like, I don't know if we should. I'm like, you guys are idiots. Get your crap out of here. So I finally convinced them. So we moved all our crap. We were just like moving crap up and down to get away from the hurricane, and it flooded 4 feet out. Then we moved it back down. Yeah, those were fun times.
North Carolina is near and dear to my heart, and this is kind of transition into the next point. Is that if you've got a pickup truck and you live minimally and you have an aircraft, you have a Cessna 206, a Pilatus, or a Cessna Citation, and you're still doing well and you're still making some money, maybe you can afford some nautical mobility. I'm more into power boats. I'm more into fishing boats than sailboats. I think sailboats are a lot of work, and you need a crew. I like to kind of throw the throttles and get up on plane, but that's that kind of third asset in your life where it's actually very doable and it provides you another option. I watched guys in North Carolina kind of ride out the first part of the pandemic on their boat out in the Outer Banks. They just kind of loaded it up with rice and beans and they pulled out into the Pamlico Sound and they anchored up. And I'm like, a lot of these guys could stay a long time with the asset they were on because they can make their own water. They can do desalination. They've got a generator on board. They got a lot of solar capability. It's just another option. And oh, by the way, you can catch a bunch of fish, so it's pretty cool. Justin, any thoughts on that?
oh, I mean, a man of his own heart. I absolutely love the water, and I love being on the water in any capacity, whether that's stand up paddleboard, swimming, uh, diving, you name it. But the same token, when I was in Hawaii, I I bought a Parker Sports center console, 25 foot, as a two Johnson 115 outboard.
We broke down on it
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
went out with them.
but it was such a crappy boat, But I mean, it was nice and it's very economical, but yeah, not so reliable, Like yeah, like Warner said, we had some engine problems one time going out. We made it.
Right by Gilligan's Island.
we 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 made it back, but I wasn't really trying to stick a whole lot of money in the boat. I just wanted to kind of get around and really just get to the sandbar. We did a little bit of light fishing. But I fell in love with the boat, and I'm like, well, at some point, I'm gonna stick some money in this thing and shine this penny up, per se. So I took the boat, and the boat's sitting right now in Richmond in storage. So when I get out, I'm gonna get right back to it. But and then an unfortunate acquisition, but I had an uncle that just loved boats, and he had the Silverton 43 yacht, and short notice, um, you know got cancer and passed away very quickly. So, and we just loved the fact that he loved boating so much, and it had us out in the water all the time. That we took that over, to continue that legacy, of having folks down and giving them the opportunity to go out and ride the Potomac and go sightsee Haynes Point, National Mall, you name it. So I love it. I grew up on the water. Every place I've been has been on the water, on the ocean, whether that's Virginia Beach, San Diego, Hawaii, now here in Japan and Okinawa.
Yeah, great. I think because Justin's planning to move back Virginia, Mario's planning to move back North Carolina. So I think you guys will definitely link up on the water. So getting to more of what we're saying in terms of travel mobility, it's a great idea to start whether or not you have a boat, a plane, obviously you have a car, unless you're Amish, maybe you have a buggy or you're walking.
Hey, dude, the Amish have a lot of things figured out. This whole pandemic is. I'm like, man, they got some things figured out. But I want to go back to what Justin said about, kind of. He's going to take this from a different angle as a pilot, but what boating has taught me is about preparation and really preparing for the worst case scenario. So I want to get on the boat and make it back safely home at the end of the day when a lot of things go wrong. A lot of people will jump on that boat and they can make it back if everything goes right. But as soon as they start running into some issues or some hurdles, they're calling CETO, or they're even in a worse situation where they're calling the U.S. Coast Guard. So it's taught me about safety protocols from a different angle. I got a little bit from the Marine Corps, running around with 50 guys in community projects overseas. But boating to me has really brought me back to planning a mission and planning for the worst case scenario, watching the weather, watching us even throughout the day. You can choose the weather window you run offshore. The Gulf Stream from where I fish out of is 44 miles. So it takes 44 miles to run out there, a couple hours, patrol for 6 hours, and you got a 44-mile run back in when you're tired and beat up and, not fresh. And you can't choose the weather to run back in on. So you want that boat in perfect condition when you go offshore.
Okay, so Justin, what are your thoughts on what Mario said in terms of how the boat shapes your personality?
I mean, I like I like Mario's approach when it comes down to using the fundamentals of protocols and safety and briefing and all the tools that he learned while in the military, to approach that the same way. It is different, to go out, and I've never, gone offshore 44 miles, but I could imagine at 44 miles, you can look in all directions and just see ocean. And for me, that's a pretty scary thought. If the current or the boat didn't perform, what safety measures, what did you do? What should you do, to ensure that if things were to go awry while underway, that you're you're going to be found, or you're going to get back in. It's a little different, but I think taking that same approach, that I do for flying, translates a little bit, and it's more low risk for me because I'm probably always in cell phone range. But just briefing the crew, checking the weather, like Mario said, and understanding, the depths, because when you're rolling on the river, the channel, but to the same token, not everything that the Coast Guard says should be at the right depths are there. So you really have to take a close look at the paths you choose, and monitoring your instrumentation, that you don't run your boat aground.
Yeah, that's a great point. So taking it to the next step is when you have your car or your boat or your plane, what are your procedures? How do you operate that? How do you think about your emergency procedures? Like I listen to this Delta Force guy, I forget his name, but he always like his car is always prepped. Not only to protect himself, it's also prepped to save someone else's life. And we don't necessarily think about that, right? The more prepped you are, maybe you're not saving your life on the water, you're saving someone else's life. So improving your travel mobility is all about having options, living with less, but also living with less means whatever you're living with, you have an SOP, a standard operating procedure to work through any scenario. So I think that's all great advice from you both. And what's the next? What do we focus on next, Mario? Is it or do you want to go back? Yeah, go for it.
I just want to go back to kind of no. I want to go back. Let's drop anchor. Let's drop anchor here because there's some gravy. There's some gravy. So number one is having a clear mind. So like I said, it's 44 miles out, and you're actually in international waters. You're not in America anymore. When you leave 12 miles, so 3 miles out, you left the state of North Carolina. You're now in federal water. And then you run out to 12 miles. You cross that 12 miles, you're actually in international water. And believe it or not, there's still pirates. There's still some pretty crazy things that happen out there. Drug guys running stuff up from the Caribbean, from the Bahamas, etc., up to New York. So one is just having a clear mind. There's a lot of substances that guys abuse when they get relaxed. They're on vacation or they're at the Saturday off and the weather's perfect and they're like, I'm going to crank through some substances and they just don't have a clear mind. So like one is have a clear mind and a good boat, and then second is like radio communications. Talk to your friends, talk to other boaters, and basically talk to U.S. Coast Guard, talk to other ships, let them know what you're doing. Basically, let your moves be predictable. Let other ships know where you're at. Let them know, okay, I'm on the fish. Be a good fisherman and be a good friend out there, and that helps you out a lot, man. If you get in trouble and three boats show up immediately because you've been talking to them all day on the radio, and you've been maybe passing a few jokes or complimenting guys on their boat or encouraging guys to get on the fish, man, you got some friends out there that's just based on your radio communication. So good boat, good comms, it goes a long way, and maybe an EPIRB.
Yeah, Justin, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what Mario was saying is just just all smart moves and things you need to consider if you're going to go out that far. The the important thing there is like you're maintaining relationships, and these are mutually supporting relationships
That's right.
that you have to consider, that just like on in aviation we have fingers is 1 2 3 4 5, and that is for anyone to hey, what's going on, this or that. But if you find yourself on distress, uh you have another channel for that. So in the same in the marine world, there's ways to communicate, ways to stay mutually supporting, and you have to be up on those C2 nodes to be able to reach out and to listen, but also broadcast a distress message if needed.
So those are what I'm hearing in both those points is for people listening to the show, most of us in the world are going around in cars or on foot, and there's usually people around. So if you're thinking about going into another realm, not if you're thinking we're committed to supporting you through our message to enroll you in going into another realm, whether it's boating, aviation, so you have options. But in those realms, you're in the sky where there's not many people around, and you're on a open water where there's not many people around. So communication and understanding how you communication, whether you're going lost communications in your aircraft or even lost communications in a boat, understanding how to deconflict that is essential. So I think those are essential points.
Yeah, Warner. So there's also another thing about risk mitigation. So we got to take some risk in life. It's going to be miserable if you don't take any risk. If you lock yourself in your house and just be a minimalist with your risk profile, your life's going to be pretty miserable. But you want to take calculated risks. So as soon as I see like thunderstorms, right, I'm checking my cell phone or I'm offshore. As soon as the first sign, hey man, things are changing. The atmospherics are changing. I need to start rolling. I'm going to start moving back to my friendly position. I learned this in the Marine Corps. It's basically the atmospherics have changed. Like the dynamic of the situation has changed. I'm headed for a harbor, and I'm saying this that I really do this in real life on a boat, but I'm saying this also is a good idea in business. Is that at the first sign of an issue, it's safer, it's safest, and it's the best practice to start heading for calmer waters. And I think a lot of guys, they get over their skis when everybody else is optimistic. They're leaning in over their skis. That's a real good time to kind of get back over right over your skis and go, no, 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 no. Everybody's too euphoric. The atmosphere has changed. I want to get a little bit back. I want to be a little more cautious, and vice versa. When people are way back on their skis, they're way too cautious in business life, they're way back. Again, the atmospherics have changed. Everybody's being way too cautious. No, I'm going to take a little bit of risk. I'm going to take appropriate risk here. I'm going to lean forward a little bit into a business deal. So that's kind of how I've taken this thing with the Marine Corps and with boating and really applied it into some of these businesses I'm going into now. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
That's open us for the next discussion, which is taking a little bit more risk, which is going into private aviation. And love to get Justin's thoughts. How do you, because I would love, my goal someday is actually, I love the Pilatus, but a Cessna Citation, or sorry, not a, right? Cessna produces Citation? No, Lear, who produces Citation? I forget.
Cessna. Cessna site.
Oh, it's Cessna. Okay, yeah, Cessna Citation. That's like, oh man, such a sexy aircraft. Just you talking about it, man. I'm just like, wow, it sounds so dreamy. So how do you go from, Justin, in your opinion, how do you go from the 206? And are you familiar with the 206 or no?
I am.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Great. So how do you go from like the Caravan of the Sky to a Pilatus? Obviously, it's cash flow, but how do you go in terms of how do you get into private aviation? You're thinking about creating another option. How do you get into it?
Well, first off, you need to understand what your operating costs are going to be. For example, I had a venture that I was looking into with a couple pilots because I was a aviation major, and folks who joined the commercial industry were really looking to how they were going to kind of maneuver in this new space with COVID. And at the time, it seems as though people were reluctant to travel in commercial aviation. So he was considering building a business based off of just kind of more unique smaller planes that would get people from point A to point B without all the interaction with crowds of folks. Seemed like a great opportunity. When you start peeling things back, you have to understand what your fuel costs are, what your maintenance costs are going to be, how many hours you can get out of that plane before it needs to go through a maintenance cycle. These are all things that are going to affect your bottom line. So before moving into any platform, you need to consider one, what do I want to do? What am I aiming to do? Do I want to do short, you know, 2 hour hops in a local regional area, or is my goal longer legs, far reaching places? And that will determine, the platform that you should choose. So I would look at it for what is the mission. Like just like we learned in the Marine Corps. Like let's start at the end. And then
What is the
then
mission
work it
profile?
back to the.
Yeah, what is the mission profile? What is your mission profile? If you're flying to New Zealand, a Pilatus, yeah, technically, if Pilatus will get you down to New Zealand, it's going to be a lot of hops, up to Alaska, over to China, or I guess Russia, China, all the way down through Japan, Indonesia, I guess Philippines, Indonesia, Australia, and on to New Zealand. You could technically do it in a Pilatus, but there's an asset for that mission profile that's way better to get from, let's say, the west coast of the United States down to New Zealand. If you're just hopping between LA and Jackson Hole to Nashville, Tennessee to, let's say, Wilmington, North Carolina, a Pilatus will get the job done. And you're going to do it with a way less fuel costs, maintenance costs, hangar costs, pilot. You need really one pilot to fly a Pilatus. And you and I want to get certified in it, but I also know that's not my full time gig. I want to hire a young man, probably ex Navy pilot, ex Marine pilot that can fly. When the weather, yeah.
There you go. There you go, Justin. You got your first side hustle with teaching Mario how to fly.
when the weather's blowing sideways, in Jackson Hole, it's like, okay, I'm going to turn it over to a pro. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. Like, that's what this guy's getting paid for, is when the chips are down, he's going to safely get you to, he's going to shoot that approach and safely put you on the ground. When it's blue skies and everything's good, yeah, I want to log a few hours. I'll do a few landings, touch and goes. But yeah, I think a Pilatus, for me, a Pilatus will work. But yes, if you can afford a Cessna Citation, you can cross oceans, and that just opens up the world for you. It's another option.
And Justin, so finishing your story, what did you decide with those guys? So I got it, like, from both what you guys are saying, it's the mission, then determining your expenses. What did you decide with those individuals, your friends, in terms of starting a business?
Yeah. So in terms of starting a business, once we start peeling the layers back and really trying to understand hangar costs and where we base it out of, what's the most central location for everyone, because we all lived in different places. We then understood that it would be a little bit harder to pull off. Um, so from that aspect, you need to understand that doing the mission, once you start your planning, that's what we were doing. We were doing planning. We came to the realization that it was not going to work with the operating costs, basing of the plane, etc. So we decided to not go through with that particular deal, given that it was a good idea and a good way to hedge. But it made more sense for if general aviation, I just want to go fly around and visit my family, and we all collaborated on the hours. That would get 100 hours, for less than $10,000. That made sense, but it didn't make sense for the commercial business aspect, and moving folks around for hire.
What platform were you guys looking at to purchase?
It was a King Air
Sweet.
Oh,
350.
and you've been checked out on a King Air, right?
350. Not quite. I can, but I may. It is. I'm like, do I want to do the same flight profile and fly for 6 hours, or do I just want to go fly for 3.5 hours and go home?
I think we know the answer to that. That's awesome. So what I'm hearing from both you all is, in terms of general aviation, understand your mission, understand the expenses, and then also understand, if you're going to do a time, like a timeshare, then understand where you all are located. Can you set it up to where it works? It's probably easier if everyone's in one spot, one location, then you just go grab the plane. But if you're in different locations, like ferrying the plane back and forth, that gets a little more challenging, and it starts upping the hours for other guys ferrying the plane. So what we're doing here is, anyone that's listening to this podcast, we're inspiring you to get the process started. Don't let the obstacles stop you. Start looking at what Justin and Mario said, and then over time you'll determine what's workable for you.
Exactly, Warner. So for the younger nephews out there that are listening to this podcast, it's about putting something down on paper and then figuring out how to pay for it. So it's about being like, okay, I want to get to this level. I want to dream big. I want to think big, and I want to get to this level. Okay, here's all the costs. Here's the acquisition cost, which is really just about half the price of the platform. Then you got to maintain it and run it around and hang it. So get those costs on a piece of paper, look at it, and go, okay, I want to experience this in my life. How do I pay for it? And then when I do pay for it, how do I upgrade? How do I upgrade every 5 years or 10 years? How do I move to the next level? And it's basically just a goal. It's something out. It's a carrot out in front of you, and it's going to make you work harder.
And Mario, you bring up such a great point. Like, the question you should all ask yourself is how, and what how does, and not just because my last name is Howe. Uh, it really it really opens up another level. The idea of your brain, understanding the smell, the touch, the taste, the feel of things versus your mind, and your mind deals in the untangibles. So you have to feed your mind. You feed your mind with the planning process. You feed your mind with the information. Then you allow your mind and your subconscious to work on these problems behind the scenes. And then you have your eureka moments. And the eureka moments are the things that you put in your mind that your mind is processing and working on, because you said, how do I get this? How do I attain this? And then eventually you figure it out. But it's only because you're feeding your mind, not your brain.
Okay, another one that Warner kind of constantly challenges me on is basically having a good running mate, having a good running partner. So Warner challenges me almost weekly, if not monthly, with something to change my language, change my approach, change my results, change my goals. And I basically got a guy that's a faster runner than me. I've made friends with a dude that can outrun me. And it's a challenge. I'm constantly, and I think there might be one or two areas in my life where I'm challenging Warner, but mostly I found a good running mate that's going like, again, why are we doing this podcast? Because a couple of months ago, he threw a challenge my way. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And I started having to think because of the challenge. I start thinking, how do I do that? How do I get in front of this guy? There's a guy out in the Pacific Northwest that I want to stand in front of. I don't have his phone number. Don't know where he lives. I know where he does business. I want to get in front of this guy and offer him a deal. I'm like, how am I going to get in front of this man who lives in Bend, Oregon, and pitch him? And Warner's like, we're going to do a podcast. I'm like, giddy up. How do we do it? He's like, buy an iPad. We're jumping on Clubhouse. We're going live. I'm like, Roger that.
Yeah, it was interesting, Justin, because what you said is really it's how, your mind, it's Mario saying, the language you put into your mind drives your actions. So if you're unsure about something, you go put some language into your mind will figure it out. Even if you don't know how to do it, you just go, hey, I'm committed to getting a Cessna citation. I'm not quite. I mean, you can back plan out how you're going to do it, right? Okay, it's I don't know, $500,000 a year to operate. Okay, I know I got to make 500,000 a year. You can back plan it all out, and then you're gonna have twists and turns to get there. But the fact that you put it into your mind, you're gonna figure it out. You're gonna plan it out. So that's an excellent point. That's a phenomenal point.
In part two of that, Warner, is just action, right? Action
Oh, you're
and
speaking
it,
butter to me,
it,
man.
and not over analyzing, but jumping in when you know enough. Then you figure out the rest of the way. Some subscribe to having the perfect parachute, and others subscribe to, hey, just jumping out and building my parachute on the way down.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've been sharing, Justin, with Mario what I learned in that landmark training, which is where you create your final measurable results. Like I'm gonna have a such citation, then you back plan it out. And like you're saying, right? It's not like you can back plan it out really well the more you think about it, but you don't want to get caught in this has to go perfectly this way, because you want to be flexible. There's going to be 100 different ways it may go throughout the process, and you want to be able to be flexible. But at the end, you reach your measurable result. That's the most important part. It's that measurable result. That's what we can all say. Hey, I want to be a Marine pilot or Marine infantry officer or a Cessna citation. You'll get there, and it's that journey along the way, which actually is the funnest part.
It certainly is, Warner. And part the part that I think about the most is that I'm not afraid because I'm used to being flexible. I'm used to having obstacles put in front of me, and consistently,
Yeah,
consistently daily, I navigate obstacles. That's just what I'm paid to do.
they could pay you more. But when you
All right, Warner, I want to kind of close on this last topic is that if you've got a really nice pickup truck, you've got some sort of private aviation asset in your life, maybe it's a 206, a Pilatus, or a Cessna citation, and you've got a boat, what's going to happen is you probably are going to have a pretty soft life. You probably figure out the financial aspects, and now you're moving with ease, and that can kind of create a weak life. So how do you, Warner, schedule your day where you can suffer and endure a little piece of your day. Not that you have to suffer and endure, but you're going to do it with joy. You're going to you're going to lace up your boots or your shoes and go out there and suffer and endure. How do you schedule that in your week?
I mean, there's different ways. I know how you're going to do it, Mario. The way I would do it is I would just create like huge days. I would throw things against the wall each day or maybe each week where it's like I have no idea how I'm going to get that done. And I guess to answer your question, create super big challenges that just because you can suffer. I mean, you can suffer like I know you hunting and you're out there like sweating and working. That's one way to suffer, but you can also suffer or challenge mentally. And when you throw huge curveballs at yourself that you've never accomplished before, that's how you do it on a mental scale. You play big every single day, bigger than you think you can. That's how I do it, where you're outside your comfort zone each day.
Yeah, so I think I have the physical down where basically I'm gonna set my life up where I suffer for 10 days a year, but I have to train for it all year round. So I book a elk hunt in Wyoming or Oregon or Idaho, Montana, etc. And I train for that event all year long. And I go out for 10 days and I get blisters and I sleep on the ground and I hunt from sun up to sundown. And I put that suffering into my life. So I build that resilience. I build that mental strength. But going back to just brilliance in the basics, once you have this real estate hustle down, or once you have this private business hustle down, how do you keep challenging your mind so that you're building a neuroplasticity and synapses in your mind to keep sharp? I haven't quite figured that game out. Is how I'm going to keep challenging myself mentally once I figure out this hustle. Any thoughts, Justin?
I have a couple. First would be what is your end goal? The scale and the scope of what you aim to achieve, whether that is to rapidly move up in the real estate industry, buying a single, move into a duplex, then a fourplex, and I'm buying a 10 unit apartment followed by a 20. So your stack, if that's something that you would like to, achieve, then it would be important to have in your initial plan. So that would be more like when I begin, I know where I want to end up. The important part about that is how do you get there? And getting there could be difficult if you try to tackle the whole goal all at once. And my approach is pretty deliberate in the scheduling of the time that I intend to work on that, because I have so many things that go on from day to day, and I'm a bit of a constructionist. Well, I have a very short attention span. I could be working on something and hear something and it just grasps my attention. So I have to be deliberate about that. Yeah, I see the shiny object and I'm distracted. So I have to be deliberate about my time and be deliberate about my actions. Additionally, I can't look at the whole goal. I have to tackle it bit by bit. Like how do you eat the elephant? It's one bite at a time. And similarly, how do you navigate? You know, driving in the fog. You just see what your headlights will show you. But eventually, you'll get to your destination.
Yeah, that's a great point, Justin. So to kind of tie in what Mario and Justin were both saying, Justin's talking about what people will have a tendency to do is they'll create this huge plan and then they get so overwhelmed by the finality of that plan that they never take step one, nor step two, nor step three. They're just overwhelmed versus eating the elephant one bite at a time and doing that deliberately. And then to answer your question, Mario, how do you keep challenging yourself? It's actually really simple. You just keep creating, but you keep creating bigger. Keep creating. Okay, now I got a fishing boat. Okay, now I'm gonna go. I don't know. I'm gonna go buy an oil tanker. I know you're not gonna do that, but you go big. You keep going big, or you go into another realm. Now I'm gonna do a hunting camp. I've done that before, right? The way you challenge yourself is you do what Justin said. You keep getting proficient at each level, and then you go bigger. You go fourplex, because the excitement isn't actually in like getting to the four plus. It's the process, eating the elephant one bite at a time. So it's really just continually creating. You're creating something new that challenges yourself. It could be anything, but you keep going bigger and bigger and bigger, or you go laterally into something else. The relationships you build with other people, that's the true joy. So I go bigger, and I meet this, I meet this other guy, or I meet this project manager or property manager, and it's really the relationships you create. So as you keep creating, you keep meeting more and more people, and you keep being impacting other people's lives. That's what I think. I know we're kind of getting deeper, but that's what I think the true joy is. It's going bigger, and then you're a stand for other people to go bigger, and you create other relationships, and it keeps crescendoing out. That's how I look at it. Thank you for listening to the Red to Black podcast. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. If you would like to connect with us in the future, you can find us on LinkedIn. Simply search for Werner Minchell or Mario Parzino. Also, you can find a link to our LinkedIn profiles in the profile section of the podcast. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.